Hi, and welcome to AMA Puget Sound's Coffee Talk series, live on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Our guest today is Brea Starmer, founder of Lions and Tigers, a marketing consultancy in Bellevue. And for those of you who are not familiar with Lions and Tigers, it's a marketing consultancy based on the idea of flexible and remote work. Brea, can you give us, well, first of all, hi, hello.
Hi. Hey,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Also, for those of you who don't know, I had the wonderful pleasure for last year to help Brea and her journey with Lions and Tigers to expand their community online. So I really am very grateful for that opportunity, and I can't wait to see what happens with Lions and Tigers. But for those of you who don't know, let's talk about the company and why and how did you start it, and where are you at this point in 2 years?
Yeah, I can't believe it's been 2 years. So this all probably started more like 5 years ago when I was working at a startup, a pretty big, well-funded startup in Seattle, and I was laid off with about 20% of the company that day. And I was 7 months pregnant when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like one of those moments where you just don't know what you're going to do or how to dig out of that. And so the only thing that I could do was consult. I asked people like, hey, will you at least hire me as a consultant? Because no one would hire me as a full-time employee. And so I kind of cobbled my way through that first year of my son's life. And he's standing right next to us over here. So you might see an appearance from Cedar. He's 5 now. And so when he was first, joining the world, I was just like trying to start out as a marketing freelancer. Like, what does this look like? And I wanted to work a little less than 40 hours. And that
doesn't.
the thing. I mean, it sounded revolutionary, and I couldn't find those jobs. And so after doing that a couple of years, I realized that there's a need in the market for this. And so we started Lions and Tigers, which is a courage brand that helps bring talented, high-skilled workers to flexible projects with brands that are looking for this kind of talent. And those opportunities are pretty rare today. So we're sort of breaking apart the traditional model and building something a lot more sustainable and flexible. And so it's grown really quickly, Julie, as you know. So at the end of our second year, we're at nearly 100 folks working on projects. It's really amazing. I know.
It is.
I know.
You exceeded your goal last year. And I think really being a part of that, just the inclusivity, which we're going to be discussing later, and how to bring that to your own organization. So with your journey, what have you found? Well, I mean, Flex Talk or Flexwork. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. I think there are a lot of people that aren't aware what Flexwork is, or rather what the benefits are. Could you kind of quick go over the benefits of Flexwork? What is that?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I say that this is the most obvious business of all time. When people kind of credit this as innovative, I'm like, no, it's really just taking, traditional workplaces and making them more accessible. And so that can look at like a number of things. It could be traditional, like you might think of job shares. So where 2 people share the same job. You can look at these like highly skilled flexible workers, which is where Lions and Tigers specializes. So we might take a scope of work and say, okay, we actually need 3 people each at 10 hours and put them in their highest and best use and assemble that little team. Sometimes it looks like a person that works fully remote. They don't come in, so a remote only worker. Other times it's a shift worker. So they might it might be someone that negotiates a flexible schedule that only works 9 to noon every day, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday every week. So these are just non-traditional employment models. They can be 1099 or W-2, and they can be aligned to a brand directly or through an organization like ours. There's lots of ways to think about flexibility. So it's kind of this career rainbow that I didn't really know existed when I came out of college, and I just wanted this full-time employment offer from a really big brand and my 401k match. Like, I didn't know about all this other stuff that existed. And so now, especially with the freelancer revolution underway, people are defining their own terms and what and how they want to work and when they want to work. So that's what we're just excited to be a part of.
Absolutely. And there are a few things that you said in there that I'd like to quick touch on. Highest and best use. I've heard you talk about this endlessly for 6 months, but can you share it with the audience? What does that really mean?
Sure. Highest and best use is actually a real estate term. It's not a consulting term. And so when developers talk about highest and best use, they're thinking about a plot of land and how that plot of land can derive the highest return on investment for what that lot of land looks like. Mm-hmm. As it relates to consulting, I think about it in terms of your boundaries. So for me, I am actually on maternity leave. Yeah. I have a brand new baby. She's my third. So my boundaries are really small right now. I can do one interview a week. You're it. So
I'm so grateful.
The idea of focusing on highest and best use is really about the concept of being really, really clear around what your boundaries are, and then thinking about how you fill that time and what you outsource or say no to as a result of that. And it's a teaching practice we have at Lions and Tigers for both our clients who outsource to us and our consultants who are outsourcing down in the rest of their lives or saying no in the rest of their lives.
Exactly. And with highest and best use, it's all about efficiency, really. Yes. And it really kind of shakes a fist at the 9 to 5, because the 9 to 5, why did we have 9 to 5? You know, we had it for that model for so long, 40 hours a week. I mean, thank goodness, we had a lot of revolution 100 years ago in order for us to get to 40 hours. But then it became, okay, this is now tedious. Why am I in the office for 8 hours when I'm only really productive 4 to 6 hours?
Oh, it's true. Yeah,
I mean, and then the commute.
Right. There's so many ways that the traditional workplace, especially for knowledge workers. I mean, of course, we have to think about this industry specific, right? Restaurant worker is very different than someone that's a knowledge worker. But for many of us who are working from home right now during this pandemic, we've completely broken many of the fears and stereotypes about the way that that work can be done. Tigers, for example, even though we're based in Bellevue, we're across the country. It's a fully remote business. We're asynchronous teams. We pull together talent that sometimes has never met each other and We've
never met in person.
Right. And we worked together for a year. I mean, and we provide these managed services and we curate this talent, right? So it's absolutely totally possible that we can build these kinds of teams, and it makes work actually more efficient, as you said. You can sometimes get work done faster. These handoffs can be a lot more crisp, and people, I think the truth is, Julie, people can just maintain this work-life balance that a lot of us have been looking for a long time. Although I don't call it a work-life balance. That makes it seem like you're going to actually achieve something. I call it a job, but yeah, that's the point.
Speaking of the word point, I'm going to use that as a segue. So Women in Cloud just happened a few weeks ago. And I did interview Chaitra just before. So if you haven't watched that, be sure to watch that video, as well as remote work. I interviewed Chris Hurd. So be sure to watch that video as well. But at Women in Cloud, you were talking about the talent tipping point. What is that? And can you talk a little more about what that is?
Yes. So Women in Cloud is a wonderful organization that does a lot of work to elevate women in tech, because as you know, women are still very underrepresented in STEM jobs and in recruiting. And the really scary point, just to before I get into your answer, Julie, is that there was a study from Girls Who Code and Accenture that found that women that go into tech jobs, that 35% of them drop out by the age of 35. And so it's a really scary statistic, because of course there's not a coincidence there with us raising children, right? Like not only are we working hard to train and recruit these women, but they get into jobs and then we lose them. And so it's a very leaky funnel. And so especially for women in tech, it's a particular area of focus of mine. But the tipping point that you're asking about is I talked about 5 things happening in the market right now that suggest that we're at a tipping point. And I was talking to this group of folks and saying, I'm hoping that we're not at a breaking point, but that in fact we're at a tipping point. And so I'll just share with you what those 5 things were that suggest to me that things are likely changing. First is this point about women leaving the market. We certainly have all read the headlines about the childcare crisis underway. I mean, we saw that in December, 140,000 jobs were lost in America, and 100% of those were lost by women. And the majority of those were women of color, the BIPOC community. So it's it is a reckoning like we've never experienced before. And you're starting to see now like the Marshall Plan for Moms and like all these things come out asking for our legislator and our employers to think about women specifically. So this child care crisis is big.
Right.
Point number 2 is that, the positive effect of the 2020 social justice reckoning is that now all of the brands are needing to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts very intentionally. People are asking like for brands to put their money where their mouth was. Yeah. And so we're seeing now lots and lots of intention in this space. So hopefully that comes through. Number 3 is that this mental health crisis as a result of 1 and 2 is now a brand's responsibility. So we're looking at employers who are thinking about mental health as part of their employer compensation packages, like that they need to consider this for their workers to stay productive. We're all trying to survive now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The fourth trend is something that Microsoft coined. Satya talked about this concept of tech intensity, and this is basically an organization's rate of technology adoption, along with its ability to build its own digital capability. So I think of this as tech plus humans equals capacity. So as tech continues to expand, get faster, and our people get faster, more efficient, this intensity can increase.
Sure.
And the last thing is this freelancer revolution. So the idea and the predictions that more than half of our workplace will be freelancers by 2027. This then shows how wild west this is right now in terms of talent. So those 5 things are massive shifts in our workplace that suggest that things are shifting in favor of workers.
Right. Yeah. You were mentioning childcare, and I was just remembering an article I read recently about during World War II, when women, all the men were gone, women had to go to the workplace, and that administration, they made sure there was childcare in place. For like a decade. And so we've done it before, we can do it again. Yeah. So how do you see that happening? I mean, what would need to happen with that?
Vaccinations. This is kids back to school. I'm sure everyone is glued to the news trying to see, when we can get kids back in school. It's interesting. I've been reading about this Marshall Plan for Moms. For people that haven't seen this, basically, there's a lot of really well-known women, especially the founder of Girls Who Code, and a lot of celebrity women who placed an ad in the New York Times calling this Marshall Plan for Moms. And it's essentially this idea that we should offer women who stay at home and produce childcare and have childcare for their kids a stipend, being compensated for that, $2,400 a month. It's a very controversial idea, and I'm skeptical that something like that would pass. But the idea that we now have women advocating for other women, even if the plan is as outrageous maybe as this Marshall Plan for Moms, is encouraging. It's showing this tidal movement of people wanting to get this childcare crisis underway. I also love, leaders like Shauna Kazi, who are bringing together ideas like Workday or Weekday, where they're bringing together these pods of kids in local communities. So that really is. Are you okay, buddy? My kid Cedar just kind of fell off his ladder here. You all right, Cede? You want to come sit with me?
Yeah, come join the talk.
Come sit with us here.
Hey, bud.
This is Cedar. He's fine. So this idea of these pods are a super cool alternative idea. Otherwise we're really stressing now private schools. We're looking at these alternatives that they're trying to come up with, homeschool options. It really comes down to schooling. It comes down to getting people back to work through childcare. That is the answer for moms.
Absolutely. Alleviation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because not only are you trying to run a team, but you're also trying to raise little humans. And that's, it's the same thing. Sometimes.
We always say what a mom can get done in 10 hours is remarkable. That's, it's like hire moms. That's the answer for society.
Pretty much.
I think that's so sad, Julie. I mean, we've talked about this before too, that women are having to choose.
Yes.
And it's not just women, of course, like men too, right? Like anyone that has to provide care, and for elder care too. There's of course the folks that are in the middle, but anyone that has to choose and drop out of the workforce because of childcare and they don't want to, like that's the great injustice of all of this. For people that want to stay at home, that's awesome. But there are many people that are being forced out right now, and that's the greatest travesty.
It really is. You and I actually had very similar stories while we were pregnant and not getting a job.
Yeah.
The story I have, I think I was about 6-7 months pregnant with twins. So you can't hide that. You could wear all the black you want, all the scarves you want. You can't hide it. No. And I went into a bank to apply or as an interview for, I think it was a bank manager position or something. I wasn't always in marketing. And I went in and I was interviewed by 3 people and they just stared at me the entire time. Like, what are you even doing here?
Yeah.
Like, why did you even waste our time? And that was really disheartening. And fortunately, in our situation, my husband and I, we were kind of ran out our savings. We were both able to stay home, but we both had to because childcare was just not an option with twin babies. And eventually my husband was the one who stayed home and I was the one who went to work. So our situation is slightly different than most people, but regardless, it's still hard. It's still hard.
I'm sorry that happened to you, Julie. I know the amount of stories that I hear like that, it's just unreal to me. And it's not just, of course, pregnancy discrimination. I face the same. Of course, during a few of my interviews, I had a number of people ask me if I was planning to come back. And I mean, like, I was in leadership roles running businesses, for my career up until that point. Like, I love work. I love my children, don't get me wrong. But I love work. And I just thought, and I even said, like, do you ask that to your male candidates? Like, I mean, that's crazy. And you're right, Julie, in our household, my husband has elected to stay home too. And that's what's working for our family right now. And it's a season. I don't know that it'll always be like that, but that's where we're at right now. And I think that's the other important thing that we have to be aware of is that not everyone has partners, right? So there's so many factors here. And that's the piece I think is so interesting about 2020 is it has brought this workplace authenticity. Like we're starting to see now, like my background is like, there's a crib right down here. Like, I mean, this, you wouldn't normally have seen all of this stuff. But thank goodness that we get to know each other a bit better, even if we're not seeing each other in person.
So that actually brings up a really interesting point. And I think you've heard me say this in meetings, human interest always wins. It just, we're human. We like stories about each other. And I think part of this, having to work at home and we're inviting other people into our lives instead of just did you watch the game on Sunday? Did you watch that episode of just the water cooler talk. It's really bringing a human interest to all of this, which is, I think, something we all just needed. I think honestly, we needed it, and to cut the fake talk at work, and just say like, oh, I see that on your shelf you have pictures of kids. It just you get right. Yeah, we're human. We're not machines, and it's really just proving that we are people. So I like where we're headed with this tipping point, kind of bouncing off of that a little bit. And you've kind of talked about it, but can you elaborate a little more on how flexibility can be strategic advantage for employers?
Yeah.
Especially in marketing. We don't have to go into it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the brands that we're partnered with today and the ones that, we see interested in this model, they're the brands that understand talent. They understand that the talent is starting to now dictate where they work, how they work, and they want to make sure that they keep those great talented people in their building. Because I think before, of course, location was really important. Like, could you literally sit in a table and come up with ideas and like do pitches and like all of this, the kind of alchemy that you would normally have in person. Now, of course, we see that can be done remotely. So there's this great, we can break apart geography that we didn't have before. And now, especially with the kind of models that we look at, you can buy just percentages of people's time. So we could take 10 hours of Julie and say, Julie, I want to pull you in for this one very specific question or problem. So it makes you now, like, we are now democratizing you, and you can say yes or no to the things that you care about. And of course, we see then that, companies that have diverse talent are more profitable. They're more equitable. They are certainly competing now with the brands that don't have that kind of talent strategy, and we're seeing them outperform them. So there's loads of reasons. Of course, too, talent will leave. That's the thing, is that full-time employees are already leaving. And so it's not a matter of if you think about this strategy, it's a matter of when, and when are your competitors thinking about it. So not only is it smart business, but it certainly is showing more profitable results, and it's the right thing to do for people. It's just it's the right thing to do. Now, there are roles that make sense that you would always really want to have full-time employed in your workforce, but marketing especially, huge opportunity, huge freelance revolution. Like, this is where all the fun is happening.
Exactly. So let's kind of turn the conversation to those full-time marketers that are still working 40 hours. What do you say to them who are interested in switching into a part-time consultant freelance model? The folks that are just like, I need to have a little more information.
Sure. So there's a few things that you need to consider before making the jump to, and especially if you're going to make a jump to 1099 individual solopreneur versus landing in some place like with us, where you got sort of a consultancy in the middle. So it really just depends, I think, a bit on the courage of each individual and the resources that they have to bring to bear. So there's like a risk factor here. Candidly, I probably wouldn't have left my job and done this if I hadn't have been kicked out. Because it is scary, right? Like, especially, Julie, like it, I didn't have medical benefits for Cedar's birth. It was frightening. But for someone that isn't under duress and isn't booted and that wants to do this strategically, you need to think about a couple of things. Taxes. So you need a really good CPA to help you with the shift. You need to think about medical benefits. Are they available through your partner? A lot of people have one partner working as a W-2 and one partner working as a freelancer 1099, and that model is great if you can think about that. But now with Obamacare, you can buy on the open market. You can buy your benefits. And then, of course, they're portable with you. Same thing with life insurance, same thing with disability. You can buy all of that on the market. And then, of course, there is the actual effort of going and procuring clients, charging the rates, setting your model, and all of that, honestly, it takes some time. It takes some time to market test, see, what would the market bear for my skills? And so I love LinkedIn for that, of course. LinkedIn is your billboard, and it's, of course, where you do your market research about what others are positioning. And then the last step is really about networking. You just need some people to say yes. For me, my first 3 clients came from my previous 3 employers. So I went back to them and said, you know me, you know my performance. This issue, I think, is still an issue for you. Can I come and unblock that for you for 2 months? And then figured out a rate for what that would look like. So that's a lot.
I hope people heard just that little sentence you said of, I worked for you. I know that there's a problem because I worked for you. Let me fix that for you. I love that. And that is, I've not been bold enough to do that. So I'm going to start doing that.
Oh, it's great. Because there's so much trust there. Ian Lurie from Portent, brought me back in to do a similar job to what I was doing when I was a full-time employee for him. Kate and Jeff from Jeffrey M. Consulting, they brought me into a really important project at Microsoft and McDonald's. And so those phone calls were critical. So people really need to think about their network. One easy thing you can do, Julie, you can actually take your LinkedIn contacts list and export it into Excel. And then I'll actually go through my LinkedIn list and I'll make some sub lists, like hot lead, cold lead, should follow up within a month. And I sort of build my own little CRM out of LinkedIn so that I can just do some outreach that way. When you're doing outreach, one thing I encourage is, I get a lot of folks that reach out to me in a similar situation. And it's hard if you haven't talked to someone in a long time and you come in with an ask. So I often about a gift first. So I may do my first outreach and just offer like a warm reintroduction and some sort of gift. Like, I've been thinking about you and this article seemed like it might be helpful for you. Or I saw your business in the news, or I saw your competitor in the news. And so you go in with a gift to reestablish a relationship, and then you kind of come in with and ask a few more rounds down the way.
You've done sales, haven't you?
Yes, I love the things.
Yeah, I did 2 years of sales, and that was definitely a tactic that was used. So use it. Because you're selling yourself, honestly. You're selling your skills and your experience and your knowledge. So you are your own product.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing that I encourage, especially this is a challenge for many people, many introverts. And I find especially women who have been disenfranchised like us,
Yes.
They often feel concerned about doing this. This is why we named our business Lions and Tigers, because it is truly about being fearless. And I know that fearless isn't a destination. I mean, it really is a journey that we're all on. And there's not a day where I feel fearless completely, but there are days where I'm willing to make a swing. And so that's what this is about, is just finding little moments where courage can step in, and that you can embrace that and try to get a little bit further down the road. That's what this is about.
Exactly. And in some cases, what's literally going to be the worst that can happen? If somebody says no, that's okay. They're not your client. That's okay. It gives you time to move on. That was another thing with sales, that just, if somebody says no, don't think about it. Just move on. They might be your target again later. You never know.
Sorry, my son made a dramatic exit. I loved what you said, Julie, that they're not your client. And that's actually one of our client services strategies, is that, if we meet someone and they're like, oh, I'm not really that into this whole flexibility thing, then I just say, that's great. Let me refer you to some brands who are really great at full-time consulting or managed service consulting that's full-time, because they're not our client. That's beautiful, actually. I love getting a no early on in the process. And I think people need to be, this is the whole highest and best use concept, is you're trying to find the people that fit right into that square, that put you in your highest and best use.
Right. And then connecting them with the companies that will be able to help them because the mission's aligned. That makes you look great, because you still look helpful, even though you're not billing for that. You're just, you're not our client, but go check out this company. I think that's really a really great thing that I think that we need to, I hate the phrase, but pay it forward. I think we need to do a little more of that. And one thing that I'm seeing a lot, especially with LinkedIn, and tune in next month, we're going to have Wayne Breitbarth, who's a LinkedIn expert, talking about all things LinkedIn. But one of the things when you're reaching out to somebody, it's obviously don't immediately sell, in your first email, more of, how can I help you? Is there something I can help you with? And it's not from a sales perspective. It's just, can I connect you with somebody? Or are you looking for somebody to fill a role? I might know someone. And it's just, I think we need to bring it back more of, we're all just trying to help each other. Yeah, we're competing for roles, but because we're broadening it with this freelance revolution, we need to help each other.
Yeah. And I mean, saying no, really,
what do you recommend?
Yeah, and saying no helps so much in trying to find and get into that right fit. And I will say, and I know we're getting close to time, Julie, but you inspired me with when you said sort of our mission, because what I found, and I'll just talk from my own experience, when I started doing work that was aligned to my values, it was like nothing. It was like no satisfaction I had ever experienced before. It was like I had been opened up as an entrepreneur like I had never ever felt, and it felt so good. It was ironic that it was at the same time as my family opening up too, and sort of that growth. So I had all this personal growth happening and this professional growth happening at the same time. I don't know if I encourage that for everybody, but the idea of being so clear on what your values are that you can say yes or no to the right projects. It is like, I wish that on everybody. I wish that everyone gets to experience that, because it is such a gift.
Very empowering, and it really helps you understand your own value as well. And I think that's a key thing that some people might be missing on trying to find their own value. Like, cause we just do the work. Like, well, this is what I do, but oh, here's my value. So I think that would be part of when you're going out and starting to be a marketing consultant.
Yeah.
And yeah, would you recommend, if somebody is still maybe unsure, if they're still in that full-time role, to try on the side, maybe pick up 1 or 2 clients that they're not overwhelming themselves?
Yeah, I think that that's a great idea. I mean, it depends too on your skill set. I mean, if you are a social media strategist or a community manager or, graphic designer, or if you have one of these skills that's really transferable, the great thing about marketing is almost all marketing skills can be packaged and sold freelance. There is very few marketing skills that are not transferable in that way. So it's very easy for you to come up with some packages, and some people can do by project, you can do an hourly rate, you can do a day rate, you can do a fixed fee. I think it's a great idea to just start and see how that feels. Before I didn't build like a big BreaStarmer.com website or do a massive CRM or invest a lot in infrastructure until I really had gotten a few yeses. So just like selling a product, like we would find product market fit with one of our brands, it's the same for yourself. If you think of yourself as that brand and that product, I went and did some testing first. And that was a really useful way to know exactly what my product was.
That's a great piece of advice for somebody who's still thinking about it. We are at time. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience? Anything that you really wish people would know?
I'm really interested in connecting to leaders who are thinking about the future of work and this whole inclusive strategy. And if that's you, then I'd love to have a conversation. If you're thinking about going freelance and you want to sort of join a community of like-minded folks, of course, Lions and Tigers is hiring, so we'd love to talk with you. And if people want to just sort of engage in this dialogue, I'd love for folks to follow us on social and share what they're thinking, what they're seeing, because we're really curious, especially in this local market. It's a big focus of ours in the Puget Sound. So would love to connect with anyone who's thinking about this direction for their lives. I'm so inspired by these stories.
Yeah, and a lot of people have a lot of stories, so there's a lot to share. Thank you again. I just want to quick plug AMA Puget Sound. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We've been serving marketing professionals in the Seattle-Tacoma metro area since 1944. I also want to thank Fujisan Marketing, our annual sponsor, for their continued support. And most of all, thank you so much for your time today, Brea, especially since you're technically still on maternity leave, but I feel very grateful, especially since you just did Women in Cloud a couple weeks ago. So I feel like I'm in that crowd right now. We've posted all of your links in the description, especially with Lions and Tigers, and including your recent Medium article a couple weeks ago for the Talent Exodus, Recovering an Inclusive Workforce that starts with bringing women back to work on their terms.
Thanks.
Very, very good article.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please smash that like button, subscribe, and tap the notification bell to make sure you're getting our newest content. Wonderful. Thank you again, Brea.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.